Cortadeiras são cilindros com 8 lâminas super afiadas que fatiam as batatas a 1.000 avos de 1 centímetro de espessura. Quanto mais finas as batatas, melhor a textura. Então, essas lâminas são trocadas a cada 2 horas para ter certeza que todas as batatinhas fiquem uniformes. As fatias saem da cortadeira e vão direto para tanques cheios com 15.000 litros de óleo de girassol, onde são fritas a 100 graus Celsius entre 9 e 8 minutos. Esses remos agitam o óleo e empurram as batatinhas para baixo da superfície, certificando-se de que todas elas sejam fritas igualmente. A fritura reduz a quantidade de água nas fatias e substitui essa água por óleo. E é assim que elas ficam crocantes. Depois de fritas, elas saem da frigideira e entram em uma esteira vibradora que vai tirando o excesso de óleo. E depois vão para o controle da qualidade de alimentos, onde os inspetores examinam as batatinhas e removem qualquer uma que esteja abaixo do padrão. Essa fábrica produz 6 sabores diferentes de batatinhas em 1 milhão de pacotes por dia. As batatinhas passam através de um cilindro vibrador e o sabor é borrifado em todas elas. Depois elas vão para o estágio em que são colocadas dentro de potes de metal e pesadas. Depois que há batatinhas suficientes para encher um saquinho, elas vão para uma máquina onde o pacote está pronto e esperando. Por fim, eles são selados e mandados para as caixas de onde irão para as lojas.
Ainda hoje, Campbell's é a sopa mais vendida do mercado. Para dar conta da demanda, as fábricas Campbell's produzem 240.000 latas de sopa de frango com macarrão por dia, em um processo automatizado que começa com o frango.
We dump the chicken meat and a flour solution into the ribbon mixer, mix it all up, and then it's pumped directly over to the filler where we fill it into the can.
Depois disso vem o macarrão.
We take flour and egg whites and mix them together and then extrude them out this head that makes the dough.
O macarrão é produzido com exatidão científica. Cada faixa é cortada com precisão e são colocados exatamente 216 macarrões em cada lata.
Then they get the broth put in them. That's the chicken stock, the herbs and spices, if you will, and the brine. They go in the closer. The closer actually puts the end of the can and seals it up.
Depois de selada, a lata será cozida. Em torno de 30 minutos, a sopa estará cozida e esterilizada, podendo ser consumida em até 2 anos. Apesar de ter sido pioneira no negócio de comida enlatada, a Campbell's não estava sozinha.
De vir imagem. Depois a tinta é transferida para o papel via rolo de borracha a uma velocidade de 70.000 revs por hora. Os rolos são cortados, depois dobrados e depois cortados novamente. Os jornais prontos saem da prensa a uma taxa de 4,5 milhões por semana. Essa montanha-russa de garras gira os jornais e os coloca segundo seu destino, e essa prensa produz tanto jornais regionais quanto nacionais. Eles são juntados em feixes e, finalmente, esses feixes são colocados em vans para ir para as bancas.
In 1924, the 10 millionth Model T rolled off the line. Ford's advertising department made the most of it. As the car was driven from coast to coast, it crossed a country that was being transformed by the moving assembly line. For America, the 1920s were the start of a consumer society in which a whole range of new products came within reach of ordinary people. Factories now turned out furniture and ready-made clothes. Electric appliances were cheaper than ever before. The cycle had started. Mass production was feeding mass consumption, leading to yet more production. The radio had almost as great an impact as the car, bringing advertising and popular music into the home. When a Philadelphia company wanted to make the cheapest, though British employers didn't share the American boss's belief that paying high wages led to general growth, the consumer society was starting to cross the Atlantic.
This is the home of the radio gramophone. hundreds of cabinets slowly moving on to completion. All components of the radio set are distributed by conveyors. We will just take a peep into the recording studio where Jack Hilton and his band are rehearsing.
How's that for balance, George? It's not so bad. I think we ought to have the violins up a little bit weak, you know. A bit nearer. A little more violins.
There are two lines of girls. I should supply them with all the bits they needed. The chassis, the transformers, and the valves, and the wire. When the girls finished the wireless sets, I used to check them over, inspect them. I used to plug them in and leave them plugged in for 24 hours. That was called the soak test. Now, sometimes they blew up, or the fuse went, or they caught fire, and some of them came through okay, and then I stamped them up, and they went into the packing department. They were put into a cabinet, and then packed and sent out. They could never understand why it was called a wireless, because when you looked in the back of it, there was millions of wires all over. I said, how can you call that a wireless? And there's all these wires in there. And you say, well, it's the fact there's no wire between the chap you hear talking and this set, you know, it's completely, it comes over the air.
The old heavy industries were laying workers off. More assembly line factories opened in the southeast of England. As companies saw the benefits of mass production, more men and women worked in the new way. The system was applied to batteries, vacuum cleaners, and biscuits.
There's a precision about this process that is utterly fascinating. And as one sees the ordinary rows of biscuits to be moving steadily towards the ovens, one cannot help marveling at the ingenuity of it all. Approximately a mile of biscuits, 20 deep, passes through one oven in a day.
Occasionally, the machine would be just shut off, you know, so we weren't too pressurised, or someone had to leave to, you know, to go to the toilet or anything, but on the whole, we kept going. We'd use both hands. Whack, 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 whack. It's quick. You can do really very, very quickly.
At Reading, Huntley and Palmer's built their own equivalent of the River Rouge. Flour, butter and sugar poured in at one end. From the other streamed assorted biscuits. 3,000 worked there.
It wasn't the same every day. Sometimes, as I say, it would be almonds, sometimes just cherries, sometimes it'd be cherry and angelica. You see, it did vary.
Employers tried to keep unions out. Workers had to accept insecurity and sudden stoppages.
The foreman himself would come round and tell us that no more work on Saturday. We would be closed, shut out. And sometimes it would be a Saturday morning and a Monday all day, which we didn't care for because money-wise that made us very short.
More production. The radio had almost as great an impact as the car, bringing advertising and popular music into the home. When a Philadelphia company wanted to make the cheapest wireless yet, they took on a new workforce. They needed no experience or electrical knowledge, so long as they were nimble enough to put the small parts together. Margaret Colombo's only qualification was that she'd played the mandolin.
He looked at my hands, and I had the long fingers. And believe it or not, when I went there was 3 others besides me, and I was the 4th one went in there, and they all had long fingers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He knew that's what he wanted. He wanted the fingers. Yeah.
The work was so easy to pick up that Philco workers sometimes swapped jobs just to vary the routine.
When you're sitting in one spot and you're doing the same job for a couple of hundred sets, that's a lot of, and it got boring, and some of them just wasn't cut out for it. Yet I had other girlfriends that liked it.
The compensation for the relentless tedium was the high wages. By the mid-20s, 1 in 5 Americans owned a car, a figure that Britain wouldn't equal for another 40 years.
It was a Ford Model T with a rumble seat.